From the first thrown stone to the drone in the sky, the story of humanity is inextricably linked with the story of its conflicts. It is a chronicle written in blood and bravery, in ambition and agony. This is a journey through the evolution of warfare, a look into the relentless echo of human conflict that has shaped our world, forged empires, and defined civilizations. Our story begins in the cradle of civilization, where the first city-states and empires rose from the fertile river valleys. With organized society came organized violence. In ancient Egypt, the Battle of Kadesh saw tens of thousands of chariots clash in a thunderous spectacle, a testament to the scale and sophistication of early warfare. Further west, the Mediterranean became a stage for the epic struggle between Rome and Carthage. The Punic Wars were a masterclass in military strategy and logistical might, featuring everything from Hannibal's audacious Alpine crossing with elephants to the brutal, grinding naval battles that would ultimately grant Rome mastery over the known world. The disciplined Roman legions, with their iconic shields and short swords, marched across continents, building an empire that would stand for 1,000 years. Their methods of siegecraft and battlefield tactics becoming the foundation for military doctrine for centuries to come. As Rome crumbled, a new era of warfare dawned in Europe. The medieval period was defined by the clash of steel, the towering might of castles, and the fervor of faith. Armored knights on horseback became the ultimate battlefield weapon, their charges capable of shattering enemy lines. This was the age of the Norman conquest, where William the Conqueror's victory at Hastings redrew the map of England. It was also the era of the Crusades, holy wars that sent armies of knights and pilgrims thousands of miles to fight in the Middle East, leading to a profound exchange of technology, tactics, and culture between East and West. The 100 Years' War between England and France saw the decline of the knight and the rise of the longbow, a weapon that could fell an armored man from hundreds of yards away, forever changing the dynamics of the medieval battlefield. The scent of gunpowder heralded the next great transformation. This new explosive force rendered stone castles obsolete and democratized killing on an industrial scale. The age of gunpowder saw the rise of professional state-funded armies equipped with muskets and cannons. The 30 Years' War ravaged Central Europe, a brutal conflict where religious fervor and political ambition intertwined, leaving millions dead. Towering sailing ships bristling with cannons projected power across the globe, leading to vast colonial empires. This era culminated in the Napoleonic Wars, where Napoleon Bonaparte's genius for command and his use of massed artillery and mobile corps brought almost all of Europe under his dominion, ushering in the age of total war and modern nationalism. Even across the Atlantic, the American Civil War became a bloody proving ground for new technologies like repeating rifles and ironclad warships. The 20th century unleashed destruction on an unimaginable global scale. World War I introduced the horrors of trench warfare, a static, meat-grinding stalemate where machine guns and artillery scythed down a generation of young men. It also saw the advent of poison gas, tanks, and combat aircraft, technologies that would be perfected for the next global catastrophe. Just 2 decades later, World War II erupted, a conflict of ideology and conquest that dwarfed all that came before. It was a war of lightning-fast blitzkriegs, massive tank battles on the Eastern Front, sprawling naval campaigns in the Pacific, and the systematic extermination of millions. The war in the age ended with the atomic bomb, a weapon so terrifyingly powerful it threatened the very existence of humanity. In the aftermath, the world split into 2 ideological camps, ushering in the Cold War. While the superpowers avoided direct confrontation, their rivalry played out in brutal proxy wars from Korea and Vietnam to Afghanistan. This new era is defined by the constant threat of nuclear annihilation, espionage, and the development of ever more sophisticated technology. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, the history of conflict serves as a somber teacher. It reminds us of the fragility of peace and the enduring human capacity for both destruction and resilience. From the echoes of the past, we must learn the lessons needed to build a more hopeful future. From the snow-swept ruins of Eastern Europe to the sun-scorched islands of the Pacific, the Second World War was a global conflict defined by its monumental battles. This was a war that reshaped the world, a crucible of courage, sacrifice, and devastation, fought on an unprecedented scale. The echoes of these clashes still reverberate today, reminding us of the immense human cost of total war. Through a lens of history, we revisit the pivotal confrontations that determined the fate of nations and charted the course of the 20th century. In the European theater, the tide of the war turned on the Eastern Front. The Battle of Stalingrad, beginning in the late summer of 1942, became a symbol of attritional warfare at its most brutal. German forces pushed into the heart of the city named for the Soviet leader, only to be met with ferocious house-to-house resistance. Every factory, every apartment block, every street corner became a battlefield. Trapped in the unforgiving Russian winter and cut off from supplies, the German Sixth Army was systematically encircled and annihilated. This catastrophic defeat marked the beginning of the end for the Third Reich's ambitions in the East, a turning point paid for with the blood of millions. As the Soviet war machine began its relentless push westward, the Allies prepared to open a second front. On June 6, 1944, D-Day commenced. The largest amphibious invasion in history saw Allied forces storm the heavily fortified beaches of Normandy, France. Under a hail of machine gun fire and artillery, soldiers waded ashore at Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword beaches. The initial hours were a chaotic struggle for survival, a desperate fight for a foothold on Fortress Europe. The success of the Normandy landings cracked Hitler's Atlantic Wall and initiated the liberation of France, paving the way for the final push into Germany. The war in Europe reached its dramatic climax in the spring of 1945 with the Battle of Berlin. The Red Army, having fought its way across Eastern Europe, encircled the German capital. In a desperate final stand, German soldiers, many of them old men and young boys, defended the city amidst the rubble. The battle culminated in the iconic image of Soviet soldiers hoisting their flag atop the bombed-out Reichstag building, a powerful symbol of the Third Reich's ultimate downfall. Meanwhile, a separate, equally savage war was being waged across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The conflict for the United States began on December 7, 1941, with the devastating surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Japanese carrier-based aircraft struck the U.S. Pacific Fleet at its moorings, plunging America headlong into the war. Though a tactical victory for Japan, the attack awakened a sleeping giant, galvanizing a nation for the fight ahead. Just 6 months later, the strategic balance of power shifted dramatically at the Battle of Midway. In a masterful display of intelligence and naval aviation, the U.S. Navy ambushed the Japanese fleet, sinking 4 of its most vital aircraft carriers. This decisive American victory crippled Japan's naval strength and halted its eastward expansion, marking a crucial turning point in the Pacific theater. The path to victory was a brutal island-hopping campaign. One of the most ferocious battles of this campaign was fought on the volcanic rock of Iwo Jima in early 1945. U.S. Marines faced a deeply entrenched Japanese force that fought with near-suicidal determination from a network of tunnels and bunkers. The struggle for the island was agonizingly slow and incredibly costly, but it yielded one of the most enduring images of the war, the raising of the American flag on Mount Suribachi. This moment, captured in a photograph, became a lasting symbol of American resolve and the heavy price of victory. These battles, from the frozen streets of Stalingrad to the black sands of Iwo Jima, were the defining moments of a war that engulfed the globe. They were stages for acts of unimaginable bravery and scenes of unparalleled destruction, fought by an entire generation called to service. The legacy of these confrontations is etched into our collective memory, a solemn testament to the scale of the conflict and a timeless reminder of the sacrifices made for the world we live in today. The 20th century was scarred by a conflict that engulfed the globe, a war that tested the limits of human endurance and reshaped the world order. It was a time of unprecedented destruction, but also of extraordinary courage, where the fate of nations was decided on bloody battlefields, in frozen cities, and across vast oceans. From the ashes of this global struggle, stories of sacrifice and valor emerged, defining an era and leaving an indelible mark on human history. These are the chronicles of World War II, a testament to the generation that fought for freedom against the tide of tyranny, whose legacy continues to echo through the corridors of time. In the depths of the Russian winter, the city of Stalingrad became the crucible of the Eastern Front. Here, the relentless advance of the German Sixth Army was met with the iron will of the Soviet defenders. The battle degenerated into a brutal, close-quarter struggle fought in the skeletal remains of apartment blocks and factories. Amidst the desolate, snow-covered ruins, every street and every building became a fortress. Soviet soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, held their ground with ferocious tenacity, turning the city into a graveyard for the invaders. The Battle of Stalingrad was more than a military engagement. It was a symbol of unbreakable resistance, a turning point that bled the Nazi war machine and began the long, arduous road to its eventual downfall. On the dawn of June 6, 1944, the largest amphibious invasion in history was launched against the heavily fortified coastline of Normandy. Under a sky filled with the roar of aircraft, a massive armada of landing craft approached the beaches of northern France, facing a torrent of machine gun fire and artillery. American, British, and Canadian soldiers stormed ashore into a maelstrom of chaos and death, fighting for every inch of sand. D-Day was a monumental gamble, a decisive blow against Hitler's fortress Europe. The courage displayed on those beaches, as soldiers clawed their way through barbed wire and stormed heavily armed German defenses, paved the way for the liberation of France and marked the beginning of the end for the Third Reich in Western Europe. Far across the world, in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, another pivotal battle unfolded. The Battle of Midway was a clash of naval titans, a high-stakes duel fought not with cannons, but with aircraft launched from the decks of immense carriers. American naval forces, having broken Japanese codes, prepared an ambush for an unsuspecting enemy fleet. The ensuing conflict was a whirlwind of aerial combat, as dive bombers and torpedo planes swooped down upon their targets. In a matter of minutes, the tide of the war in the Pacific was turned. Explosions ripped through the decks of Japanese carriers, crippling their naval air power and halting their eastward expansion. Midway was a stunning victory, a testament to intelligence, strategy, and the bravery of the pilots who flew into the heart of the fire. From the frozen ruins of Stalingrad to the blood-soaked sands of Normandy and the fiery skies over Midway, the war was won through immense sacrifice. The images of its aftermath are a somber reminder of the cost. Weary soldiers, their faces etched with the horrors they had witnessed, standing amidst the rubble of once great cities. Yet through the devastation, a new world was forged, built on the hope for a lasting peace. The legacy of this great conflict is not just one of destruction, but of the unyielding spirit of those who fought to secure a future free from oppression. Their struggle became the foundation upon which generations have built their lives, a solemn promise that such a global catastrophe should never happen again.